Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammons Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them. Terry?
Terry Van Horn. I don't know what. Working too much on lighthouse bullshit.
Doc?
Doc Sheldon, Intrinsic Value SEO.
Steve?
Steve Grinzer with Steam Driven Media.
And I'm Bill Slawski of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research at Go Fish Digital. So we were talking about spam websites. Well, we weren't talking about them. We're going to be talking about them. How does Google treat spam websites?
From my view, they seem to love them.
I read a statistic somewhere that said they got rid of 25 billion spam websites last year.
Wow.
That's a lot of websites.
So that means the spammers have built 50+ billion in the last year?
Yeah, because they ain't finding anywhere near all of it.
It really does depend on the niche. I mean, seriously, when you start looking at anything that's heavy in the lead gen, metal buildings is one that comes to mind. Plumbers,
As long as our buddy be working in metal buildings.
yeah, whatever.
As long as I know.
It's good money. I mean, the leads are worth some serious dough, and it makes sense that a lot of people are doing whatever it takes to get those leads. The problem is, well, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but a lot of them have moved over to GMB spamming instead of building out hundreds of websites trying to win an SEO. They're building out one halfway decent website and then just spamming the GMB. I know one guy who's doing plumbing, and he manages like 800 GMB listings in California.
Yeah, if I'm trying to optimize any website, I'm not particularly fond of people doing lead generation in the same niche.
No.
Nah.
No. And that's why so many plumbers have defaulted, or, there's, again, I'm just going to use plumbers as an example, but that's why so many of them have devolved into just buying leads, because they simply can't compete as a real business. Fortunately, a lot of them don't get any of the work, and it's just crazy.
But in the long run, that may run cheaper for them, right, Steve? Sometimes.
Yeah. I know. I just went through an experience with some solar lead gen stuff, trying to find out some information about solar from here. And it was real obvious that the website I landed on was a lead gen site. But out of curiosity, I went ahead and filled in the information anyway. And I got reached. I mean, I had like 25 different solar guys reach out to me, scattered all across the country. And it's like, You do know I'm in Tennessee, right? And they're like, oh, no. And it's like, how much did you pay for that lead? Well, $30. It's like, well, then you just threw $30 in a hole. That kind of stuff. It's horrible.
So the leads aren't qualified very well either, and they're charging
Usually
a lot of
not.
money for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and they sell them to multiple people, obviously, because if I filled out on one website and got 20, 25 people contacting me, they're just selling it to everybody.
If they had been local, though, it wouldn't have been such a bad thing if you were actually looking to buy something.
Yeah, well, the closest guy local to me was about 140 miles away.
Okay. But you're in the middle of nowhere, Steve. Everything's
Yeah,
over.
so the nearest gas station is 120.
I mean, the local guy I know that's only 30 miles away, nothing. And I reached out to him directly on his website. So maybe he's busy enough he doesn't.
Looks
But
like it froze up.
I don't know. It just sucks.
Yeah, we had some other discussion on the web this week about stop words.
Oh, God.
Anybody care about stop words?
Not a bit.
Not since about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I last wrote a blog post about stop words in 2014,
There you go. I was pretty close, about 10 years.
and it was covering a patent from Google, which said sometimes we pay attention to stop words and sometimes we don't. Sometimes they're actually meaningful.
Right.
Well, like stop words like not, which is on their stop words list, but it is definitely going to be influential in a lot of contexts.
Well, you have a stop word as part of an entity, like The Matrix.
Yeah.
It's a movie by Keanu Reeves.
That's how you know it's a movie, the word "the."
And a matrix is an array of numbers.
Right.
They're not the same thing.
The word "and" too could show a relationship between two entities as well.
Right. You have a string of words like to be or not to be. And it's like one of the most important questions anybody could ask. And it's a bunch of meaningless words.
Might even be more important now as they get better at natural language processing.
They start using pre-training programs like BERT to understand what's actually being said.
Yeah. And even newer one, which no one,
Smith, huh?
yeah. Who knows, it could be in there too.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I've never been terribly aggressive on removing stop words from my URLs, because a lot of times they need to be there.
Yeah, I think they do too.
Really? Another thing WordPress does automatically.
WordPress will eliminate some stop words in some places, but if you want the stop word there, you can keep it there.
Yeah, you can edit the slug.
Yeah.
Dug in the slugs.
Yeah, I remember back when I used to just have a number instead of a slug. And people were getting upset. They're saying, you do SEO and you've got a slug? You've got a number? Why don't you have a string of words? Said, how much value do you think that string of words actually has? If a relevant page title is worth $1, a relevant URL for a page is worth maybe 3 cents.
One Dogecoin.
33 of those make 100 though, Bill, and that's what it's all about.
Well, you've only got one URL per page most of the time.
No, what I was meaning was you put a lot of little things like that together. That's how you get 100% optimization. Fully optimized. You've done everything you could.
There's a point where it becomes meaningless, a little bit too much.
Yeah, when you got limited time or resources,
Right.
there's a point where it's a diminishing returns thing. Why waste your time? It's like billing rate. If your time is worth $50 an hour to you, why would you piss away 6 hours doing something that's going to bring you $5 of income?
There's still some things that seem like they'd have relatively minor value, but they're worth doing, like adding meta descriptions to pages. I mean,
But other search engines use there's other things use a meta description.
right. I mean, why rank in the top 10 for a phrase if nobody ever clicks on your result?
Right. Wasted time. If you get there and nobody clicks on it, total waste of time. You've done your job, but it's worthless.
Well, on the other side of that equation is if you manage to get them to click through, and for whatever reason you can't convert anybody on your site, then that's a waste of time and money too, you know. And we see an awful lot of that.
Right.
We see a lot of that.
That's why if you're going to make me responsible for that, I got to do the work, not be working with someone else's stuff. If you're going to hold me to that. But as an SEO, my job is to get people to the site. And if I'm not working on the site, then it's up to you to take it from there. My job's done.
There was an interesting question along those lines in a group I saw yesterday on Facebook. Somebody asked if they were thinking about taking a commissions position. There were some very good points made in the comments, but I mean, I can't envision a situation where I would be willing to take on a commissions position if I didn't have control of the company. I mean, if they've got lousy salesmen or lousy customer service or lousy warehouse or lousy product, you know, any number of things, or just a lousy set of ethics, because you know damn well that any site owner can doctor the numbers and hide from you what's really happening. So I mean, I just can't imagine ever being willing to take on a position like that, unless it was my company.
I only did it once, but I did it with PPC. And
Oh,
I made
PPC
more
is
money
different.
than I ever have because I took an hourly wage, a base rate, and then once I had so many qualified people, I got so much. And then if those people actually bought, then I get even more.
Yeah, where
But
it
in
was
the
paid,
end,
yeah, it's different. Yeah, I could see that, but I
In
don't
the
do
end,
paid.
I'd work like 2 hours a day, and I've never made that much money in SEO, not even close.
I have a client where our ability to affect sales stops at the moment they hit the website because all the final conversion happen with live salespeople. And he's like, well, you know, it's no good. It doesn't, you know, it's not working. But how do you know? You're relying on your in-house salespeople because, well, they say everything sucks. It's like, well, of course they do. They're salespeople. They're lazy. That's why they're in sales. And so we had him take a percentage of the leads randomly for a week. And he had like his best month ever. He's like, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, I do. Fire your salespeople and
There
get
you
new
go.
ones. It's not
They
that
had
hard. You
order
want me to come in?
takers.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
I
used to
mean-
call them order takers. There's order
Yes.
takers and there's salespeople. You want salespeople,
Well-
not order takers.
And it's funny because their salespeople were a lot like car people. It's like, they get the lead, they call you on the phone, and then they say, well, you need to come in. It's like, I don't want to come in. Let's just have a conversation. Oh, no, we need to have this in person. I'm like, no.
Goodbye.
But
You
Yeah.
would think that they would have thought of Zoom by now. You know?
no.
That job I had doing that. That was actually going to a sales room. But they had pretty good salespeople. If the
Right.
buyer was qualified, it was payday loan. So, those people, if they're qualified, they can actually take the loan. They're sold. It doesn't take a lot of selling.
I worked with a real estate company out on the coast that had, 800 some agents, and everything went through their in-house call center. And so the people at the call center would pre-qualify all the leads, and they got real quick at figuring out which agents were worth giving leads to and which ones weren't.
Yeah.
And so you'd have a certain percentage of the agents who absolutely love the internet, and everybody else does it sucks because all the leads suck. It's like, well, no, you get sucky leads because you're a sucky agent, and they're not going to waste good leads.
On a sucky agent.
Yeah, well, the guys, the people that call center got a piece of the action. They want these houses to sell just as bad as everybody else. And if they know they're just going to hand it to an order taker, as you call them, what's the point? I'm going to send it to this person over here who does, 20 million a year. Yeah. So.
Okay, so I have another question for you all. Are you all familiar with passage ranking and scroll to text?
Haven't
You
seen
do
much
query,
of it.
and you get a
Scroll to text, you mean some of that
Yellow highlighted
annoying stuff?
Yeah. So what's the difference between the two?
One's annoying.
I would think they're pretty closely related.
So Google's been talking about passage ranking. And when they first came out with it, when they first described it, they showed a featured snippet as an example of what passage ranking was. And ever since then, Google's been telling us featured snippets and passage ranking aren't the same thing.
Right.
But the example they showed us, it was.
Right. Danny actually admitted that they were wrong in doing that. That was a bad picture.
But they've never explained what it is that makes it different.
Right.
Because I've looked for Danny's answer to that.
Yeah.
And he continues to say they're not the same thing. And they continue to seem to be the same thing.
Right.
There were 4 patents that talked about answer passage ranking. And I wrote about all of them. And they seem to be very good ways of coming up with featured snippets.
But I think they actually had a different idea for that, didn't they, Bill?
It's impossible to tell because Danny won't tell us what a passage ranking is. I mean, we have Martin Split talking about passage rankings, and he doesn't describe what they actually are either.
Maybe it doesn't really exist. They were just blowing smoke to us.
Or maybe they just don't know.
They insisted that it started up like a week ago or so.
Okay, so it's only 7% of queries, right? Is that not true?
I'm not sure because they make up numbers and don't provide any proof of them.
Yeah. I thought I read somewhere 7%.
I read somewhere 7% too, and it's as much a non-answer as anything else.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. It's a non-answer.
Yeah.
But 7% of billions, like that's not really a high number, is it?
15% of all the queries that we receive in a day are ones that we've never seen before.
Right.
Do you have any idea what those 15% are?
No.
Well, and my first reaction to that statement has always been
a lot of it is misspellings, I'm sure.
I would think there are things like subject and then today's date. They've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Because it's got today's date in it.
Or with or without a question mark at the end, even. I mean, if there's any minute difference,
right?
Is that what constitutes an previously unseen query? Then
you got misspellings and miskeys too, where you punch the wrong key.
You have a query for Brooklyn Nets 216-21, and you want to find the score of the game. It's a never seen before query.
And you could format that date about 4 different ways as well.
Okay, here's a question for you, Bill.
Yeah.
What if I type in current weather forecast San Diego? Is it going to see that as a 21621 query?
I don't know. Would you name your bail bonds company near us?
Bail bondsman near
Yeah.
us. Someone will.
I'm sure someone has.
But I'm also thinking the way they kind of described where they might find those passages, right? They would be in relevant documents, but subtopics or whatever, you know what I mean?
Well,
So they could be down 2 or 3 pages and they rank and they come up and people just think, oh, I got a link, or they can't attribute it to passages.
the patents describe the unstructured data versions of answer passages as if they're the things that the people from Google are talking about, where they're actual passages of text and they're under certain headings or under a page title and a heading.
So that would
To
make
get the
it like a
context.
featured snippet, only with more context.
And they're intended to answer a particular question from a person. It's not like what are restaurants in New York City, where you expect a bunch of URLs to restaurants. What's the best restaurant that serves Italian food and has is near an antique store? That's a query that actually wants an answer. Actually, it's a query that wants 2 answers.
And I've seen those types of searches in search terms for PPC. It's salon next to whatever, Walmart kind of stuff, where you see those a lot. Where people, they kind of know the general area and they're hoping that Google is smart enough to go, oh, you mean this Walmart and this salon, and off you go.
Yep, that's also, if there's more than a few of those, right? If they're counting them, probably SEOs are testing for those keywords too.
It's possible.
Well, look how much traffic took place here not
Yeah,
too
you
long ago
should.
about
How many people
landscaping near
would
a
query
pork chop.
like that? Like I gotta think it's like 1 in 10 million or something. Like,
Press release near hotel.
yeah. Oh, it might be people looking for when Giuliani was supposed to be at that hotel.
The Four Seasons. Yeah.
And he was at the lawn care beside the porn parlor.
Yeah, I wouldn't hire him as an attorney to represent me. No.
I wouldn't let him walk my dog.
Well, Trump has to hire him because he doesn't pay lawyers, so no one will work for him anymore.
Yeah, he's pretty much cleaned his own clock on that. Trying to find a lawyer now.
Yeah.
It's either prepaid or nothing.
The first guy said, "What? Where's the money? No money, no pay, no working.
No ticky, no washing.
And the guy who ended up representing him was stealing the coasters from the Congress because he knew it wasn't get paid anything.
He actually could have had a duck go in and defend him, and it wouldn't have made any difference in the outcome. That's for sure. Might have done as good a job as his lawyers too.
Okay, something strange that I heard on the web last week. Google will look at no index pages to determine whether or not they score well on core vitals?
Yep. They're going to test those and include them as well.
Have they ever done that before? Pages you know that are no indexed? Ones that you've specifically determined to be no indexed?
I've never seen it.
I've always assumed that no index meant we're still going to crawl it and index it. We're just not going to show anybody.
Right. But
Same thing with no follow and all the other stuff. There was in one of the groups just last week somebody was complaining.
How did?
Would they base
There was somebody
ranking?
just last week that they had a whole section of their website is no indexed, but it's still showing up in the results.
Would they
positive.
rank index pages based on how well the no index pages might score on core web vitals?
If you flunk
know.
any tests on that, you're done. You don't get that ranking benefit. That's if you flunk anything.
To me, John's argument that at times, because it can affect the user experience, they might look at other pages. To me, that kind of holds some water. I understand their point of view on that, but yeah, I think it's a total departure from anything we've ever seen.
So an
Well,
ordering
it's
card,
also one
an
step
ordering
over
card,
the line.
an ordering card page or a thank you page.
Well-
The core web vitals on those would affect the rankings of product pages.
They
Well, I can tell you.
They do, but they
because I
shouldn't.
couldn't fit something. I just de-indexed my author page because I don't care if it ranks anyhow, but it wouldn't pass the core vitals because there's a bad breadcrumb in it that all-in-one SEO writes. It puts a item in there where there's no word to put to assign to it, so it's a item with no name, which breaks the JSON. Which is another reason to uninstall all-in-one.
I haven't even looked at their core web vitals stuff very closely. The couple of times I did look at it, running the test back to back on the same pages, tended to return wildly different results anyway.
Yep.
And it made me question the whole ability of them to do it properly.
Is that the Lighthouse version on Chrome browser only, or is that on? Yeah. I found the one in the Chrome browser, the development tools. It was pretty accurate.
But those wildly disparate results on rapid retest, I see that in their page speed test. I see that in their mobile friendly test. Basically, every public tool Google offers, I see that.
Oh, the mobile friendly test was a fucking joke.
It's all over the park. Yeah, but their page speed
you
does
could
too.
Test the same page and get two different results.
And I see radically different findings on their test. So I have no confidence in the Google tools. Now that maybe there's an underlying reason for it that would make more sense if we knew it, but I don't. I mean, the bottom line is I can't trust the results. I think I mentioned the other day I had 4 pages that were marked in GSC as too small print, and I went and ran it through their mobile friendly, and it gave me a gold star. Perfect, beautiful, wonderful. So I didn't change a damn thing. I just went back to GSC and said, okay, Mark, it's fixed. They retested it and came back, you're good. So,
Yeah.
You can't trust that kind of crap.
Yeah, I didn't find that with the core vital stuff.
And that's why I'm very leery of the Core Web Vitals comments on it, because if they've got one that we can rely upon now, it's going to be a real eye opener. It's going to be a shocker. So I'm not that trusting.
I do it on their site, and then I go to GT Metrics and test it there too.
Yeah, you can
Because
do-
I like the results that GT Metrics gives. Just gives you the files, not all this rigmarole. And here's the thing that I really thought was, this is out there. They wanted me to change all my images to a kind that I didn't even have an editor that could frickin' edit it.
WebP.
Yeah,
So
I don't
is
know
the-
what they call
is
them,
the-
but you know how much time it would have saved? It was like
Milliseconds?
decimal and then a zero in front of it. Behind it and then a number. That's how much of a savings there was, but they still expected me to do it.
It was a Google
Yeah.
format of image.
I don't know. It's total crap. Whatever it is, it's just like out there. Like, sorry, not going to happen. And they shouldn't expect people. That's where they're telling us how to build websites. And for me, that's where they've crossed the line. Sorry,
You
I'm
get
getting,
it. You get it.
you
on
got
this
me going
rating
now,
because
boys.
Yeah, when
you
they-
get a D on this rating because you didn't save the 4 bytes on this one format.
Right. When they want you to replace a profile image and you're going to save 4 bytes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Say, really?
Right. We were talking, and here's their instructions. Used instead of saying KB like everybody else, it was KI, big B. I've never seen that before as a measurement of a file. Like, what do I have to relearn this shit after 25 years because that's how Google wants things done now? They're crossing the line here, big time.
Well, in reality, a lowercase b and an uppercase b are 2 different things.
Well, I thought
One's-
so too, but I'm pretty
One's
sure
a bit
they're
and
the
one's a
same
byte.
thing.
You know, they're different.
Oh, that's why the number was so low, because it was so low I'd never seen measurements that small. Yeah, I don't mind learning new things, but when I have to learn them because of this, that means I have to replace something that might actually be of use. You only
I
have
still
so
think
much
that
room in there.
I think a large part of it still has to do with Google wanting people to reduce file sizes as much as possible to save them money on their bandwidth. Because for an individual website, it means absolutely nothing. But for Google, saving, bytes over millions and millions of websites is real
Adds
money.
up. Yeah.
Gotcha.
In hardware
But here's
and bandwidth,
what I will
yeah.
say, right, Steve? Because of this, I went to a website, tested it, realized, this site's taken 9 seconds to come down. 2 years ago, it took 2 seconds. I've done nothing to the website except for add 1 post a month. Okay. It shouldn't have slowed down that much, but that's WordPress.
Yeah.
There's no indexes in the database or nothing. It's like, it's so poorly written. Well, you know what I'm saying. You come from the old school, Steve. It looks like a dog's breakfast, the code. I would have been ashamed to have a page with code that looked like that back in the day.
Then add a couple of theme builders on top of that.
Mhm. And a half a dozen plugins.
But try to convince a company to hand code or to let you build them something from scratch that's not WordPress or Magento or any one of the Joomla. They don't want that because when you're gone, they've got to maintain it somehow. And the easiest way to do that is WordPress.
See, but if you build in Bootstrap for CSS and you straight up PHP programming, it's pretty well. That's WordPress.
Yeah, but there's enough people that aren't going to be able to. You won't be able to go to Fiverr or have somebody's, Billy,
Oh, yeah.
the receptionist nephew, take over the website.
Yeah. Well, my cousin's uncle's best friend knows how to build websites. We'll get him to do it.
Yeah, and his dog is a designer.
Yeah. His graphic designer is, dog.
Can we just go back to building websites and tables?
A
I think
disaster.
I think we can.
It's not as bloated a code. I remember when people said, "Oh, these divs and stuff will be not as bloated code as tables." Yeah, really? I don't think so, bud. And it's much easier to program a table with the CSS in line.
Is that the
Exactly.
justification for external CSS files? And
Well, here's what I don't understand. There's 15, there's all these external CSSs, and then there's 1,500 lines written into the page. Like, use one or the other, boys. You don't need both.
Well, how many of them also have an exclamation point important next to them
Almost
to
all of
override the
them,
one
yeah.
they couldn't find copy the problem to begin with?
Yep.
I freely admit I use that far more often than I should, just because I can't find where they buried the stupid CSS to begin with.
Yeah.
And just throw an inline important and be done with it.
See, I just do it in line. It's so much easier than trying to do it in the external sheet. And supposedly faster. AMP, like I said, the files are tiny, CSS.
Yeah, what'd you say, 1,500 character max?
I'm not sure. I know the number was 1,500, but I'm not sure whether it's characters or
lines.
1,500 characters for CSS is not much.
Yeah, I've done that in line. I mean,
It might have been 1,500 KB or something like that. I'm going back to that this week, so I'll probably be looking at that. But I didn't like you couldn't style. It was really hard to style even a drop down box, right? The drop down goes the full width no matter what you do, because every container goes, it fills it no matter what it is. Yeah, it's gonna take me a while to figure it out.
So Terry,
Yeah.
I've been seeing you've been sharing with us a lot of SEO roundtable posts,
Yeah.
and they're mystifying sometimes. So John Mueller is actually saying things like shorter domains are not better for ranking or SEO.
Yeah. That's the stuff they're covering now, right?
So who told him that shorter domains would be better for ranking or SEO?
It was probably a question in the webmaster video he does every Friday. They get some real,
oh yeah, it's
some
entertaining.
real out there questions. Believe me.
I've always had to tip my hat to John just because his
Yeah.
ability to keep a straight face is amazing.
Like, you're asking me this, really? And you're calling yourself an SEO? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know why they would. I think people hear something like that's good for user experience, right? And somehow that flips over to SEO in their mind.
Well, you know,
Well, having a shorter domain name makes sense. If you've got a choice between a domain name that's 10 letters long and a domain name that's 100 letters long, I could see you going for the 10-letter long domain name.
well, for the sake of
Right.
memorability, at least, certainly.
Yeah, how do you spell that again?
You're always so. It's always the, give or take. Why am I doing this? What are the goals of the website? That sort of thing. When you're making those decisions, that's how I look at it.
So in an ideal world, the best choice of a domain name is it's memorable, it's short, it's easy to spell,
And it's stuffed with keywords.
and it's stuffed with keywords.
3 times.
Well, let me put it this way. I don't think it hurts.
I have seen things stuffed with keywords that it did hurt, like alt text and for images.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, for a domain, and the number that they use, I'm pretty sure a domain can't be more than 1024 characters, not 2,000.
1,024 characters
Yeah, I believe that's
for a
the
domain
number.
name.
Yeah,
That'd be easy to remember.
yeah. Well, it's one of those numbers in computing that it's always coming up.
Right. But there's a point where even that gets a little bit ridiculous in terms of practicality.
Yeah. Like Google will index everything you put in a title. You could put 1,500 words, they'd index it all.
So what's the maximum length for a meta description?
I believe that again in the specification is 1024.
For
It's-
indexing.
They give you a certain number
No,
of
for
pixels.
the HTML specification, I'm pretty sure it says 1024 characters.
But yeah,
maximum.
but for display, it's what, like a 160, isn't it? If I recall.
Yeah, that changes when it's
it
at
depends on-
Google's whim.
It depends on what's in the query.
Yeah, but they also change the length from time to time from, 180 to, 3 paragraphs. I don't.
Right. The title they show and the snippet they show is going to depend on what query term you used in your search.
Yeah. I try and keep it between 165 and 180.
Characters.
Yeah. Because I really don't believe that Google measures that in pixels. I don't know who came up with that, but computationally, that's a lot harder to compute than characters.
It was one of the agencies that did some extensive testing on it. I recall it's been 4 or 5 years at least ago, but their evidence was reasonably convincing for what they were showing. In some instances, it would depend upon what the characters were.
So
if
it's
it's
one
the
of these,
letter I versus the letter
yeah.
M,
it was one
Not
of
all
these,
letters are the same width. That's very
Exactly.
correct.
It was one of these SEO firms that published. I've studied 14.8 billion blog posts, and these are what I found out about.
This is the useless information I came up with.
You left out the last weekend, Bill.
And
But
that's
a
where
lot of people
that's where you find out that the ideal blog post length is 3,284 characters.
right. Or 1,568 words.
With a keyword density of
Like most of those programs, SEO programs that are telling you 65 characters
Yeah.
for a title are whacked. 65 characters are displayed, but do an all in title search and see how many characters they come back, anywhere from 82 to 85. So that's what's weighted. What they display is another matter. And that is old as the hills. It actually came out of a discussion on iSearch. The 65 character bit.
It's like everything
Which-
else.
Back in the days
I
when
don't think
SEO,
as long
when
as they need
SEO
to
was
be,
search engine positioning.
and don't worry about it.
Right. Because they actually index everything in it.
Right.
So after 85 characters, say, that's all counted as part of the page. I used to put my misspellings in there as a way to get into the content without people seeing it unless they look at the code.
sneaky sneak.
Nowadays, Google respells and corrects those misspellings.
They always have. Or for as long, last 10 years anyhow.
I'm just thinking of all the text programs that have auto-incorrect in them, and they misspell stuff for you.
Auto incorrect.
Mhm.
We plowed through all the topics already.
I think so. William Rock is asking the question about page speed. Says, I think page speed things are very important for mobile users without unlimited data plans. I'm not sure that mobile friendliness is that big of an issue.
It is where
Yeah,
I
but I
live.
think. Go ahead, Steve.
I just said it's an issue where I live.
And mobile phones are also run
And I just had to switch to my backup provider.
No.
You know,
Phones are mobile is also slower.
I saw an
you
article
want-
online. I saw an article online here 2-3 weeks ago from somebody who worked at, I think it was Novatel, one of the defunct mobile phone manufacturers. And he was in engineering there, and he said that one of the big considerations from their standpoint on speed for mobile phones was battery life. He says they did testing, and for people that now with smartphones that are going to Google to search for something, or going to a website to download the page so that they can read it, maybe not even interact with it, just read it. He says the difference between 4 seconds and 2 seconds is tremendous on battery life. When you look, if you've got a 20-hour battery, you might have an 8-hour battery if they're in a 2G area. which I hadn't thought about that, but he says it's really underestimated the impact that slow internet speeds have on battery life. And nowadays, everybody's carrying a damn phone, so that could be one of the under the table motivations for pushing it as well.
There was a mobile carrier that was advertising on my radio that was presenting some really shady stuff. They're talking about introducing you to higher bandwidth speeds to connect with for the first few months. And then they had a disclaimer that said, after the first 3 or 4 months, we'll reduce you down to 2G for everything.
What's the point?
I'll just use some smoke signals then. Thank you.
That's what I was wondering. Why they're even telling you that?
Why would any company even admit they still are running 2G?
It made no sense.
And Steve probably liked to have 2G. Any G's.
Even just G.
Yeah, like I said, any G's.
Poor Steve. Well, maybe Elon will take care of everybody.
Yeah, well, I already signed up and gave him $100. I'm getting tired of having to maintain 2 dedicated internet connections in the hopes that one of them works.
Won't work.
Right, I just had to switch back to satellite because the land-based DSL is out. It's been unstable for 2 days, and now it's totally out. And now I'm on laggy satellite, and it's like I'm just tired of it. Really am.
Yeah, I had a connection like that in Niagara Falls, where when it rained, not even bother to turn the thing on. It was so annoying.
Well, that's like down here, when the humidity exceeds 35%, forget it. You're going to lose internet.
Yeah, I'm down the street from a huge Viasat facility, and I'm wondering how they're doing these days.
That's who my satellite is with, and they suck.
I had heard that they're launching some new satellites, and have
Yeah,
to
they still
presume
suck.
when they send new ones up, they're bigger ones that have more bandwidth,
Better be a lot bigger. Eh,
so
Steve?
they can sell to more people.
Well, so I signed up with, I forget even who it was now, Exceed or whatever. Service was great, fast, everything was fine. Viasat bought them, and within 24 hours, my speed and everything else was reduced by 50%. And I'm thinking, did they go up and knock satellites out of orbit? Or did they just take away half of the bandwidth that Exceed had and apply it to the rest of their customers? Which is what I think Viasat's really
due
doing.
to their infrastructure and didn't build it out, just added you.
Yep.
My guess is
Rogers did that here.
they started building more buildings and cared less about building new satellites.
Yeah.
I remember Rogers here, the main cable company, bought another company. Everything was fine with the one company, right? Because they were both in the same area. Well, what they did was when they bought the other company, basically threw their infrastructure away and started doing everybody on theirs. It wasn't worth a crap afterwards. But I guess it's just in that part of the city because I'm in another part that's great. But it was lousy out there. That's why you should never just
That's why you should never what?
figure you're going to get the same service when two companies merge. Usually what they're doing is merging one's infrastructure and taking the other away. Just doubling the amount of people on the same infrastructure.
Yep.
So satellite company isn't launching new satellites. They're just putting everybody on the same satellites.
Probably.
Right. Well, what
it's
they're
only
doing
gonna
is
get worse.
the way I understood it is, let's say Exceed only had 10 satellites, Viasat had 200. They would buy Exceed's 10, roll those into Viasat, and spread that bandwidth across everybody in the hopes of selling another 5,000 people with their wonderful commercials on television saying how great it is. And then they continue to overload the satellites because they're not putting enough of them up. And now you've got Elon coming along and Jeff is going to do it too. They're just going to eat their lunch. Because I'll pay the $500 for the equipment and the $100 a month because that means I get to turn off two $90 a month connections.
Yeah,
I'm
so
ahead of the
it's
game.
not really costing you anymore.
It's costing me half.
So Musk is going to do that. I guess that's perfect when
Yeah.
you own a company that launches the things.
Right. Well, that's just it. They had their pre-order set up finally, and I went in, paid my $100, and got on the list. They should have me installed by the end of the year.
Wow.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, so you'll have a system that's overbuilt for a while until they start filling it up, right?
Yeah, but with the way they're doing the satellites, they're small and cheap, and they tend to stay overbuilt.
Ah, okay. So they can put a lot up because they're cheap to build.
So, like when Viasat launches a new satellite, they launch a satellite, and it's the size of a truck. When
Right.
Elon Musk does his satellites, they're the size of beach balls, and he throws 30 of them up there at a time.
Right.
They burn up, no big deal. It's fun. You
So
can go
that
out at
sounds-
night after a and see a
That
whole
sounds
string
like-
of them into orbit.
That sounds a bit like what Bill Gates was trying to do with the low-flying satellites, but that was affected by weather too much, so it didn't work out.
Yeah, his stuff was more weather balloon based.
And Google was doing the weather balloons, the Loon,
Yeah,
and they closed that down this year. They decided they weren't going to make money on it.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was the same thing with Microsoft. They were or Bill Gates was going to use, like you said, smaller satellites, low flying, like not really in space, like still in the atmosphere. And they were affected by weather. So he proved it doesn't work, is what he did. I found that with my satellite in Niagara Falls, it was really affected by weather. And it was the same thing. A big tower, I had to point my dish at the tower. And if you didn't have a clear sight line to the tower, you couldn't get it.
I've had that too.
Yeah,
What they call
out in
that?
the country,
wire-
that's the kind of, yeah. It's like a peer-to-peer network out in the middle of nowhere.
I had a friend years ago. He had what was that called? Starband, and they were the first internet satellite company to come out with the little 3-foot dish. And he was way far north and barely got signal because it was so close to the horizon. So he took all of their network gear off of the little 3-foot dish and put it on an old 12-footer that he had, and improved his signal dramatically. The problem came in when they were a company that didn't use phone lines for their uplink. They used satellite for their up. And he was causing harm on the satellite because he was hitting it pretty hard.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, everyone. So,
Another
called it.
one complete.
Call it a day. Thank you all for joining us. And take care now. Close it down. Bye.